How safe is your sanitary pad? And why is it that this question that impacts millions of women in India doesn't even get the attention it deserves? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. Our focus today is on the findings of a new report that actually finds that the sanitary pads that we use every month could potentially be linked to cancer, to diabetes, to PCOS, to infertility, and other complicated medical ailments as well. The Delhi based environmental NGO Toxics Link actually tested 10 brands, both organic and inorganic, and unfortunately found the same result. This very, very worrying survey and study comes as the fight for equal access to menstrual hygiene remains a very real one, and how it impacts the lives of young women. Remember, 23 million Indian girls actually drop out of school when they start menstruating. The stigma is real and active. And the access to sanitary pads for millions of poor girls, in particular, and young women, is elusive. The menstrual cup has arrived in all of this debate around the sanitary pad. And as we've been fighting for access to more inexpensive sanitary pads, comes this extremely alarming study that actually suggests that when we wear a sanitary pad during a monthly period, the chemicals in that pad, both in the organic, supposedly safe brands, and the inorganic mass commercial brands, those chemicals are potentially linked to cancer, to infertility, and to PCOS. So, why isn't there much noise around this? Why isn't this the headline story everywhere? Why aren't we asking our companies, our governments, our drug manufacturers, our pharmaceutical companies more questions? Do you know that even the listing of ingredients behind the pack of a sanitary pack is not mandatory by law? Let's introduce our guests on the program today as we look at this all important question. Dia Mirza, actor, activist, and eco investor, is with us. Actually, I have to confess, she first alerted me to this study. So thank you for doing that, Dia. Also joining us is one of our best known oncologists, Dr. Dodul Mondal. We're very happy to have you with us, and we hope your expertise will help us separate the line between alarm and genuine concern. Also joining us is a cancer survivor, Rita Bhalla. She's fought cancer bravely against all odds, and I can't even imagine what she might be feeling to discover some of these findings that the study has in fact thrown up. And also joining us today is entrepreneur Alakshya, I beg your pardon, Tomar, who's the co-founder of True Cup, which is, of course, a menstrual cup product. And it's great to see all of you. And I think I see there Dr. Trupti Gilada there at the bottom of our screen. Dr. Gilada, good to have you with us. Dr. Gilada, of course, is a physician out of Mumbai. Welcome, everybody. Okay. Let me first actually just take us through what this survey is telling us very broadly, if we can have now the slides that actually talk about the findings of the survey. Now, as I already said, this NGO, Toxics Link, tested 10 pads, and it came to the same conclusion for every product, that every sanitary pad that they tested basically has some harmful chemicals. It looks at phthalates and what are called volatile organic compounds. And these are, of course, chemicals that are potentially linked to cancer, but a number of other complications as well. And I'm sure the doctors on the panel can tell us more. The VOCs, and I found this really offensive, are actually used to add, quote unquote, fragrance, as if your period has a smell that needs to be hidden. Why are we playing with our lives, even marginally taking that risk just to add fragrance to our sanitary pads? And as I said, it isn't only the link to cancer. There are other potential complications, PCOS, endometriosis, as well as infertility and even diabetes. The study is, I found it worrying, but I don't want to be an alarmist. Before I come to the doctors, because it was Dia who actually alerted me to the study, and I know Dia embraces a number of causes related to the environment. Dia, what did you think when you read this? And before you answer, you went on Twitter, you held up a sanitary pad. I think we have those pictures there somewhere if we can play them. And you wanted to break the stigma, which was great. And you then ended this sort of intervention on social media with a tweet where you spoke all about how you try and use safe organic products. Like many of us, you assume that the moment a product says it's organic, it will automatically have less chemicals. But this study actually finds that the organic, self proclaimed organic products have the most number of harmful chemicals. I was staggered to actually discover that. So, Dia, before I come to our experts, I want you to talk a little bit about what made you pick this up as a cause. You sent it to me. That's how I got into the subject. Go ahead, Dia.
I was deeply alarmed by the study. Just as you mentioned, the findings of the study were extremely worrying. I discovered 5 years ago that like most regularly available sanitary napkins were made with plastics, and that is toxic not just to human health; it's also toxic for the environment, which is why I started seeking out alternatives and made the switch. I first actually made a switch to organic sanitary napkins and then eventually made the switch to the menstrual cup. And obviously, Barkha, this is something that has and now we have a young daughter at home who's just started her menstrual cycle. So it's so important for, I think, all of us to be equipped with the right information so that we can make better choices. So my eyes and ears are always open, trying to understand what's available in the market, what's good, what's not good. Having said that, I was most disturbed by the fact that a lot of the brands, firstly, all the brands that are in the mainstream market that are available are definitely carrying the kind of toxins that none of us, let alone women, should be exposed to. Right?
Yeah.
That's the first and the most important question. I've been asking for 5 years now, why don't we have better regulation? Why aren't these big multinational companies being held accountable for what they're manufacturing and putting out into the market? While there's been raging debates about making sanitary napkins tax free, or even saying that the cost of the pad should be much less because we need to make it accessible to more women. And there is so much work to be done in making menstrual health accessible to millions of children, young girls, and women across the country, right? While all of this is still happening, I think it's so important uh, for us to have a form and a system of regulation, because even for somebody like me who's a little better aware, I find this study to be deeply disturbing.
Yeah. And I was struck by the fact as I was going through the study that actually the law doesn't require the manufacturers to list the ingredients at the back of the packet of sanitary pads
And
that we buy.
also the product can be made accessible and available in the market without any stringent regulation. There is nothing that covers toxins that are present, the chemicals. What chemicals are you using in the composition of the manufacturing of these pads? There is no regulation in place to check that. In European countries that regulation exists, but in India there is no such regulation. So while we are trying to get young girls, not just in urban India, but in rural India, to switch from, we all know, Barkha, we've spoken about it for so many years, we're aware of this, right? Mud is used, there is sand that is used, leaves are used, synthetic fabrics are used, though that's all leading to all kinds of complications in health, right? But imagine, we've been propagating the idea that a sanitary napkin is a healthier option, when in fact it is not, in the composition that it exists and is available in the market. And we're talking about huge companies, huge industries. We're talking about millions of dollars here. So who do we hold accountable?
Yeah, and I think the fight, as you said, has been upended, right? All of us have been fighting for more equal access to pads, less expensive sanitary pads, asking and urging girls in rural India to move away from using leaves and twigs and kapra, or a combination of it, as you mentioned, and move to pads. And now we come across this survey where if they in fact move to pads, they may be in fact playing more with their lives if the status quo continues. Now, Dr. Mantal, I must bring you in here. Um, at one level, there's so much that is carcinogenic potentially around us every day. And we don't want people to live with alarm and fright. And the idea of this show is not to frighten people, but to inform them, to make them aware, and for us to urge manufacturers to answer the tough questions. Uh, that said, does the findings of this survey surprise you, or is this something perhaps that oncologists have known all along when it comes to chemicals and cancer?
Thanks, Barkha, for asking this very vital question. And yes, as oncologist, we have two perspectives in our life. One as a professional, and one a professional where we feel just like any common human being. So, as a professional, we know that any chemical being used anywhere, be it a food, be it a preservative, or be it a component of any toys or anything, it can cause harm, and that can range from a simple skin reaction to severe harmful disease like cancers or different malformations being that can happen when the fetus is in utero, that means inside the mother, or when the fetus is out as a kid, as a growing kid, adolescent, and then as an adult. So we know that yes, chemicals can cause multiple problems, including cancer. Now, of course, it's an alarming thing. So you have asked a very vital thing, alarming, and should we be concerned and should we start raising panic bell? Now, of course, this is an alarming finding. Let us get some clear facts. Why? Now, consider that on an average, a girl can have a 30 years of menstruating life, starting from average age of 15 to 45. That is what the Indian standard is, or average Indian age is. And let us consider that 5 days every month. So that makes it 1800 continuous days of use of a sanitary pad. Now, how these phthalates or this VOC or volatile organic compounds are harming them. So we know that this vaginal mucosa that has multiple secretions, and they can get damaged very easily, and that makes the chemical agents easy to access the bloodstream, going inside the reproductive organs and also in the blood circulation, reaching other organs. So of course there are reasons to be concerned, because now the toxin has access to human being in the circulation, and it can reach different endocrine organs where the phthalate has its side effects. So we know that phthalates can cause multiple problems that can include cancer, that can have endocrine abnormality, including diabetes. It gives rise to insulin resistance
So
and
this
insulin.
is a real concern. Just to summarize
Yes,
it for our audience that are not doctors, Dr. Mondal,
yes,
30 years of consistent exposure to the same chemical, right? Which is actually pressed against the most intimate parts of your body,
yes.
is potentially a serious danger.
Yes, so that's a matter of concern. Now, uh, being a person of a scientific community, we just don't believe, or we just don't give our sermons or verdicts based on one fact. So we need proof that yes, this is the cause of rising incidence of cancers. I think that will take some more years. Let us take an example. We all knew that smoking causes cancer. Now, it took years of studies to prove that yes, smoking is the reason of 95% of lung cancer, but we need that scientific evidence. So,
But Dr. Mandal, sorry, I'm just interrupting to make the point that just that you as a senior oncologist believe that prima facie the consistent exposure to phthalates and VOCs, over prolonged exposure is a matter of concern that needs more questions. Let that be the starting point of this conversation, where, at the very least, I don't even think most women, I didn't know what a phthalate is till I read this study. I didn't know what it is. And I was appalled to discover that some of these chemicals, Trupti, are added to add fragrance. Who wants a fragrant sanitary pad? What the hell is this? It basically is subliminal bias against the smell of a period. Trupti, any thoughts?
Yes, so this is one of those studies which is, there have been several studies recently that have just shown time and again what we know, that biological phenomenon related to women are considered shameful, be it menstruation, be it issues with breastfeeding, or even issues with pregnancy and postpartum complications. So, just as a spectrum of all those biological phenomena that exist in women, which should actually be so normal for not just women but also for men, there is just so much stigma. And considering that the biological fluid which is excreted or released during periods is foul smelling and therefore requires fragrance, and therefore you expose women to these chemicals under the pretext of adding fragrance and making periods fancier. Yes, it's definitely not just scientifically, but even as a woman, it's like uh, so many biological phenomena with men aren't treated that way. And that goes a long way, because if you see the research for phenomenon like these, be it menstruation, be it what is used in these sanitary napkins, are sanitary napkins the best option, or are there other better options? It's only now that NGOs are studying it. It has never been done as a wider scientific study, which was funded by the government or funded by the public health at large. And I think this is one of those moments where we really need to see that do NGOs or just one association do these studies and tell us, or is this supposed to be actually done by the government? Because today we know that there are phthalates and there are volatile organic compounds. And like Dr. Mandal said, yes, we know that these chemicals are there, but it will take some while to actually prove to
Prove
us
it.
what is the
Yeah.
effect of this. But the fact that this is there and we never knew about it also tells us that there is so much of secrecy in all these products.
And I
So
think
while
that's
the
the
government
I
does
think
all
that's
these,
the point, Trupti, that the secrecy. And I just want to bring in Dia before I go to Rita and Alakshi. Dia, you heard the two doctors. The chemicals, sustained exposure. I was struck by Dr. Mandal's point that 30 years in the lifetime of an average woman who's menstruating regularly means exposure to 30 years worth of these chemicals. The fact that these ingredients, the list of ingredients, okay, maybe most people will look at it and not understand it. That also happens. The listing of the ingredients is not enough, Dia. But the secrecy around what goes into a pad, which is the most intimate sort of product that a woman will use at most times in her life after perhaps contraception.
Which is why I feel so let down by our government. I think it's the moral responsibility for our government to put in place a very stringent process on what should be made accessible for women's health and menstrual protection. And it has to have very strong guidelines. There has to be a law supporting it. I mean, today we're having this conversation, but Barkha, if I, as a citizen, a regular citizen, a part of civil society, discovered that there are pollutants and toxins, I actually stopped using regular sanitary napkins because I found out that they're made mostly with plastics. But at that time, I didn't know about the toxins and the chemicals in it. With time, I've discovered it. So the point that I am going to reiterate, which I said even in my opening intervention, was I think it's essential for us, for there to be a law, for there to be very stringent rules and regulations, and some kind of a system that ensures that every single company that is putting out menstrual health products into the market goes through those stringent regulations, so that when we promote the usage of something that is supposed to be for the good health and the betterment and to empower women, menstrual hygiene products are supposed to empower women. How can we even imagine that we're being responsible if we're not sure or able to point to
Yeah.
the fact that this is unhealthy and harmful to women? So it's I feel the government is responsible for where we find ourselves today, because there has been no system in place to ensure we are receiving healthy products in the market. And two, I think as civil society, we all need to keep asking all these big companies and the government the very serious question of why women's health is being neglected in this manner.
Yeah. And you know
Why
what's
do women need
important?
risk, such a huge risk.
Yeah, why are women being put at such a huge risk?
Efforts
And
to establish a direct link between the toxins present in a sanitary napkin or the chemicals present in a sanitary napkin with cancer. That may take forever to happen, right? We all know how understudied women's health is in any case. So we just need to go by the fact that there are these chemicals and toxins present in sanitary napkins, and this has to change.
And you know what's ironic is that, as I said, that for so many years our fight has actually been directed at a less expensive sanitary pad. And of course, the point being made by both the doctors also is that you need scientific, big, giant studies to prove this. But women can't. Dia makes the very important point that as women, we can't hang around and wait for that conclusive proof. We know these chemicals are there, and we discovered this because an NGO decided to test these pads. Now, intriguingly, the Prime Minister actually announced a 1 rupee pad as one of the most sort of acclaimed government programs, and we all praised it. And this was the mainstreaming of the sanitary pad. Listen in, because after that, I want to ask, should the sanitary pad be mainstreamed and pushed, given what we know now? But first, the Prime Minister.
मेरे प्यारे देशवासियों, गरीब बहन बेटियों की बेहतर स्वास्थ्य की भी चिंता ये सरकार लगातार कर रही है। हमने जन औषधि केंद्र के अंदर 1 रुपये में सैनिटरी पैड पहुंचाने के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा काम किया। 6,000 जन औषधि केंद्रों में पिछले कुछ थोड़े से समय में ही करीब 5 करोड़ से ज्यादा सैनिटरी पैड हमारी इन गरीब महिलाओं तक पहुंच चुके हैं।
So this was praised by everybody, and now we would have to wonder whether it's the sanitary pad in the direction of which we should be actually pushing the access to menstrual hygiene debate. I want to bring in Dia. Dia, you wanted to say something? I want to go to Rita, but Dia, quickly. Dia.
I would appeal to the Prime Minister of India to put in place that stringent regulation and that system to evaluate the health of a sanitary napkin before making it accessible to everyone.
Exactly. I'm saying this is upending our traditional understanding of the debate around access to menstrual hygiene, and that is a matter of some concern. And that's why, to the doctors, I will come back to Dr. Mandal. We don't have time for that proof. We need a pause on this before we know more, or we need the manufacturers to make a different kind of pad. I don't know if I'm being realistic, but as a woman, I'm pretty sure everybody would agree. Rita, you've battled cancer. Your thoughts today?
Yeah, you as a volunteer, we generally go around spreading a lot of awareness because we feel that's the only way that we can tackle cancer in some manner. Because doctors say it's 70% of all cancers are because of faulty lifestyle. So whenever we go, and especially to women organizations, bastis and all, where there are women who are not so educated, we always stress the need of educating them on hygiene. And of course, sanitary napkins is one major thing. And we always encourage them, speak with your daughter, ask her to maintain hygiene, ask her to change her sanitary napkin. Little did we realize that this has so many chemicals which may cause cancer. So, the remedy that we are giving them, the good lifestyle thing that we are teaching them is it really that good? No, it isn't. So that's really very shocking, and it's very saddening also. And we've seen, cervical cancer, generally we advise them, one is vaccine and the other is take care of your hygiene, be it during periods, during childbirth, after intercourse. So take care of your hygiene, use sanitary napkins, change them frequently. And I keep telling them, talk to your daughters, don't be embarrassed. This is a natural thing that is there, and please educate your daughters as soon as they get young. Tell them in detail. So it's very, very saddening because here we are wanting to bring a solution for this, and we realize that the solution itself is so harmful.
Yeah, that is the point, right? That is the solution, is what we've been pushing for years. Now part of the problem and not part of the solution. Can you speak a little bit to your own battle with cancer? I think you're here, you're whole, you're healthy. We do also want to underline that is possible. We don't want to cause fear through this program. Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, so like this was in 2001. Before that, I had hysterectomy at a very early age because I had these fibroids. Now when I read about these sanitary napkins, I kept wondering, did the fibroids, which have become so common in women these days, was it because of these sanitary napkins that we have been using ever since we were teenagers? I had these terrible fibroids, and I had two children. So at a very young age of 30, 31, I had my hysterectomy. And after 10 years, there was this wound related cancer, which was vaginal walled sarcoma. It was pretty shocking. But then I dealt with it. I had my chemo, I had radiation, I had surgery, and I recovered. And that's the time I realized, because when even I was diagnosed with cancer, I was shocked. Even when I went in for my diagnosis tests, I never thought in my mind that I would have cancer. So then I realized, I was a little sensible because of this bleeding. I rushed to the doctors, but many people don't do that. There may be one single episode of bleeding which they may just ignore. Maybe it doesn't happen for another 6-7 months, and then when there's a second round of bleeding, it may be too late. So in a way, I was lucky. So that's the time, I thought I must spread this awareness. So that's why more awareness for women. And what you all
But
said
but but
rightly
but
was,
no, and more power to you. But I think I'm struck by the fact that today you're thinking you don't know what caused it, and today you're thinking, oh my God, was it the pads? And the
yes,
truth is, we don't know. And Dr. Mandal is right in saying it's going to take us time to prove. Science
yes,
needs to prove it, but what do women do in the meantime? Remember, we are pushing this as a mass sort of use of menstrual hygiene. Now, Alakshi, you run a company that produces the menstrual cup. And I'm going to ask you, do we know what ingredients go in the cup? The cups haven't been tested for these chemicals. All of us used to think organic means chemical free. We've discovered with these pads that it doesn't mean that. The cups are much more expensive than the pad. There's certainly no cup for 1 rupee, as you just heard the Prime Minister announcing the pad. What would you say in this debate?
I mean, couple of points there, right? Firstly, definitely menstrual cup seem like the solution in front of a sanitary napkin because it can be used for almost 8 to 10 years. So the lifetime value of the cup is actually much cheaper than sanitary napkins if you put them together. Secondly, when it comes to safety, most cups are supposed to be made of medical grade silicone. This is the same kind of material that you use for stents or any kind of insertables. So I think medical grade silicone cups are extremely safe, extremely hygienic, and that's what we have been trying to promote and propagate. But here, the problem around, the lack of regulation also comes in because if you see the market right now, it's flooded with a lot of cheaper cups also. So the kind of material sometimes is food grade silicone. So again, the fact that we're not, we don't have to disclose the ingredients as well as there are so many varieties of cups being imported and being sold on different e-commerce websites. So the lack of regulation bothers us even in the menstrual cup industry. And
And
there
I'm
are other
sure I'm sure you used pads or tampons before you used cups. Cups are a
100%.
new advent. What do you feel when you look at this study?
So we've been aware of these things for almost like 2002 was one of those initial studies that was conducted that shared that there are chemicals present in these pads. We've been talking about it. I'm part of a nationwide community called Green the Red. So we've been talking about sustainable menstruation because if you actually dig into the materials of the pad, it's very, very obvious that it's a risk to the health and risk to the environment. I think once you actually, people say that you have to dispose the pad in a paper and then throw it in a dustbin, but where is it going after that? It's polluting the water bodies, it's polluting your soil, it's polluting, I think it takes around 500 to 800 years to decompose. So it's in our environment, it's in our food. The micro plastics are in our food also. So
Yeah.
the pad is not going away at the end of the day. There's no way to recycle it, especially
I,
at this
I
scale.
want to come. Hang on, Lakshmi. I want to come back to the doctors in a second, but I think Dia was wanting to jump in with a point. Dia, go ahead.
I completely agree with Alakshi. I was just trying to say that the bottom line again and again, I know Barkha, this is the bottom line we're on, but the bottom line is that we need very stringent laws. And we have to have a system in place, and it has to be done with immediacy,
Yeah.
absolute immediacy.
Yeah. And what really upsets me is why there isn't noise. Look at our media. Look at the kind of things we make noise over. Why isn't there noise over this? Dr. Mondal and Dr. Gilada, Dr. Mondal, you're the oncologist. We defer to you. You said we need proof. But what are women going to do in the meantime, sir? What would you push sanitary pad manufacturers to be doing at this time?
Let me be very clear. There is no doubt that we need to stop using phthalates and other harmful chemicals. We should not wait for a 10 years or 15 years time by when many women will develop multiple cancers or other health related problems, and then we'll be coming to a conclusion that yes, phthalate was the reason. So let us have stringent laws, as I think they has told this multiple times, and I fully agree with her. So let us have a stringent law to stop all harmful chemicals in this. Now, just a little bit, I'm deviating from this discussion and tickling your thoughts. How many of us are actually aware of the fact that the same materials are also used in baby diapers? So, phthalates are also used in baby diapers. Now, phthalates are basically a plastic softeners, and it is being used in many situations, many places. We really do not know what is happening to all those millions of small kids who are on using regular diapers. So that is one area where I think maybe some NGOs or some government agencies they can work. So let us stop using this. I want to have one
But
comment
how do
on
we
Alashri's.
stop? Sorry, can we mute Dr. Mandal for a second till I ask the question, because there's some loop happening there. Dr. Mandal, you've made a very important point. You've said there's no doubt that while science does, it takes its time to do hypothesis and study, phthalates are harmful. They shouldn't be in pads. You have reminded us they're also in baby diapers. I personally know that two of the women on this program are new moms, Dr. Gilada, relatively new moms, and Dia. And so I think that point is going to stay with them, that the phthalates are there in baby diapers. When you say they shouldn't be there, what should happen? In South Korea, and I discovered this through the study, 15,000 women filed a class action suit, and the manufacturers, Lilian, it was called, were forced to withdraw their product. The current manufacturers, Dr. Mondal, all have, 10 of them at least, have these phthalates. So, should there be an urgent intervention from the health ministry to say this is not acceptable? What should happen, Dr. Mondal?
So I can give you the example of Johnson and Johnson's baby powder, the best example where the enforcement of law actually can stop using harmful products. So one of the governments took the initiative, Maharashtra government took the initiative, they filed case, they filed complaint, and it was proven that yes, their powders were having those harmful chemicals and it was banned. So if the law enforcement department wants, it can really be stopped immediately. So the first point or first step, probably we can do stringent law to stop the usage of existing products which consists or which contains phthalates, and stop them immediately till the time we find another suitable chemical or a non-chemical products. Now, what are the non-chemical products? One, of course, we are discussing here vaginal cup. Second, a true organic compound. Now, I really do not believe that the products which are being sold uh, saying that they're organic, they're actually not organic. And I call it an organic industry. So industry being run with the tagline of organic. So we have to be very careful. And the third solution, probably Dia has already mentioned, sanitary pads made of simple, clean cloth. Probably that is the best solution. And we may need to invest more of our time, energy, and investment on this, that how to make it better.
Yes, it's so interesting. It's so interesting that we have gone back to the cloth. We spent years in the feminist movement actually saying women must have access to pads, not cloths, because let's face it, mobility is a problem. Old style pads used to be tied with a string. There's some of us who are old enough to remember, my mother's generation used to wear pads like that. The problem with cloth is, how are women mobile? How are women expected to move and do their work? There's so many problems, and no one's even talking about it. Dr. Gilada, yeah, go ahead, Trupti. Yeah, hang on, we have to unmute you. Can we unmute her, please? Trupti, go ahead.
Am I? Yeah. So, while we talk about these products having harmful chemicals, what we must remember is that the menstrual hygiene program has worked for several years to bring us to this point. Over years, we know the fact that 23 million girls drop out of school every year for the lack of the right menstrual hygiene. And having sanitary napkins was one step in that direction. So, just taking sanitary napkins away overnight is only going to take us backwards. So, before we do any of those things with the data that we have, we need to use this data to go back to the companies and tell them that you have to give us safe pads. The pads aren't going away anytime soon until there is enough awareness and accessibility to the sanitary cups and other alternatives, be it reusable cloth or something that is more sustainable for these young girls. In the urban areas, we know that the problem in the rural areas is 5 times more than in the urban areas. So we really need to see the problem of the girls in the rural India. And while we use this data to go to the government, and the government goes to these companies to give us safer napkins, we increase awareness for alternatives
So you're saying it's not practical to say, let's move away from the pad. We've got to stay with the pad and put pressure on the companies and the government to ensure that these pads are safe.
Yeah, because just using this study is also going to cause a lot of fear. People who've started using napkins are going to start thinking that it's going to cause cervical cancer, and we know that
But honestly,
most
we just
of the,
heard Dr. Mandal saying we phthalates for
but
30 years. Some of us have
but
already
we but
lived those
Dr.
30 years with those pads.
No, but Dr. Mandal will agree that most of the cervical cancers are caused by HPV, which is a virus, which is not transmitted through napkins. So we do not want to misguide
Okay.
the
I think there are lots of
viewers.
responses coming to what you've said. Dr. Mandal first, then Dia, and then Alakshi and Rita, who've been waiting. Dr. Mandal, go ahead.
It will be very much incorrect to say that at this moment we have enough evidence to say phthalate is the reason behind all these cancers. A cancer is caused by multiple factors, and the kind of cancers we are concentrating here, say for example, vaginal cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, so they are known to be caused by multiple other causes rather than phthalates. So let us be very clear on that fact. Phthalate just might be one more reason in the list. So the bottom line in your program, bottom line is we have to be very much open-minded. Let us not be confused with one study. We are a scientific community and we go by evidence. So we definitely respect the finding, but till that time we are having a conclusive evidence that this is causing this. We may just expect that the government will come with very stringent laws and studies to ensure or to confirm that yes, this is the reason behind so much of cancers. Talking about cervical cancer or other cancers in the genital organ, there are more reason to believe that human papilloma virus is the reason for 95% or more of such cancers, which can be prevented
Right.
by vaccination and safe health hygiene. Now, I
Can
just
I just
want to
jump
make
in?
one more comment, if you
One
will
second,
please
sir.
allow me.
Sorry. So one second. Since all of you have spoken about what the bottom line might be, for me as a woman and as a user of sanitary pads, the bottom line is quite simply this: that I'm not a doctor, but I don't want these phthalates and these chemicals in my sanitary pad. This is what I know. I'm not comfortable, given that I didn't even know that they existed till I read this study. I think there's an absence of transparency at the manufacturer's end. I take Dr. Gilada and your point that we don't have enough data, we need more research, there are multiple causes. An HPV vaccine today exists. If you're talking about cancer, please go and take that vaccine. All agreed. But Dia, I think you'd agree with me that what we're actually saying is hello, big companies, hello, big multinationals, hello, self proclaimed organic companies. Why do you have this chemical in your pads?
Absolutely. And it's a fundamental right to life. It's a fundamental question to be asked when it comes to health, safety, security. I mean, it baffles me that we're even having this conversation today. It baffles me that nobody has asked this question before. It baffles me that we've been supplying not just menstrual pads, but diapers. And I'm glad Dr. Mondal brought it up, because this is again something that has been deeply disturbing and concerning. Why don't we have the law that is needed to protect us, our health?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't agree with Dr. Trupti when she said that, you can't link the cancer to the phthalates. You never know what cancer it causes in the human body, right? The fact of the matter is, the science is evidence of the fact that toxins and chemicals can make you unwell. It's unhealthy. So for something that is supposed to be a primary health uh, issue, I mean, we all know that menstrual hygiene is not just about personal health. It's about empowering women, it's about uplifting society, it's about so much more. So
Yeah,
it's I think it's incumbent on us. And Barkha, honestly, I feel like we should all get together and file a PIL,
we should.
and
We should,
demand
because, yeah.
we put some kind of an institutional intervention and hold these companies accountable. And the Johnsons example was damn right. I mean, for years, for decades, people used that talcum powder on their babies, not knowing that it was toxic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
And
the
even
reason
now,
why
I read recently
we
that
can do
man,
better is because we know better. It's a
absolutely. Sorry, now I just want to bring in Alakshi and Rita, because it's going to be time for last comments soon. Rita, do go ahead, Rita.
So whenever we go to these women organizations, bastis, we tell them two things. One is that women are much more delicate, though we have to do a lot of important things like producing children and other things. We are much more delicate than men, so it's even more important, because the
I don't
vaginal
want to. I don't.
thing
I
has
don't
a
want to
membrane.
agree. I don't want to agree with that. But I'll let you
Yeah,
complete
it
your
has a
point. Yeah.
mucous membrane which can absorb these toxics, so that's very sad. And second thing is that a woman is very important for the family. The whole family depends on the woman. A one woman takes care of the family, but 10 people can't take care of one woman. So she does so much for the family. She is very important for the family, that's why for the country. So it's very, very important for us to be very, very conscious that she doesn't get harmed in any way. So what Dia and what Barkha you have said, I totally agree. This we should get to the bottom of this, and we
But
cannot take a chance with
I also
women's
just
health.
want to say, that whatever we finally agree on, and I think an institutional intervention to put pressure on companies to produce pads that we know to be safe, at least as much as we know to be toxin free, is the way to go. But whatever we produce, it has to be something that doesn't interfere with our right to daily life. For too long, a woman's period was used. There are still places in India and even in Asia where a woman is sent into isolation, is sent into a hut to be in isolation, is expected to sort of give up on the rest of life. And we must be very careful in not going back to a place where a period is used to disable or stigmatize women. Alakshi.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up that point, Barkha, because my point is, while access to product is very, very important, and we've gone to rural India and we've shown them these products, right? That these are the pros and cons of each of these products. Now you choose. At the end of the day, informed choice is what we should be propagating for. While obviously regulations are also important, but till the time we're not educating people about the exact facts of each of these products, why is a cloth pad better than a plastic pad? At the end of the day, these are pads made out of plastic. And I'm again highlighting, while the body suffers a lot, the environment also suffers. And coincidentally, like once it's in the environment, everyone around are also, subjected to the negative impacts of these pads. So I definitely feel like this is not a product we should be going forward with at any cost. For personal hygiene, personal use, as well as just how it's disposed of, how it's recycled, how it's
But is that practical? A couple of you have made this point. The pad is not the future. The point is the pad is already the present. So either, here's the point, that the pad is the centerpiece of your mass menstrual hygiene program. And today we are saying it's potentially not safe. We don't know enough about it. We do know it has chemicals. We'd rather it didn't have the chemicals. This much we can all agree on. Uh, Dr. Gilada, go ahead, and I'll get Dr. Mandal to respond after that. Trupti?
So I think the most important thing is to use this study to go to the government, and pressurize the companies. One, to ensure safe menstrual hygiene products. Two, to inform us or tell us what every product has. Because once we know what the ingredients are, then people make their choices. And the third important thing is to make sure that these studies do not harm the menstrual hygiene program. While we do all this, we do not want to push back the program. We do not want these women to drop out of school and colleges all over again.
Yeah, that, Dr. Mondal, is an important point. You already have millions of girls, stopping to go to school because there's no bathroom or there's no access to any kind of menstrual hygiene when they turn 13 or 12, the age when they start menstruating. You were wanting to make a point earlier. Sorry, doctor, I had to cut you off. Go ahead and make your last thoughts, Dr. Mondal.
Yes, fully agree with all of your views regarding this. We must try to stop the usage of harmful chemicals as much as possible using the law enforcing agencies. But at the same time, I'd request that please do not undermine the impact of cervical cancer screening and vaccination program, highlighting the issue of phthalates, showing it as the reason for this cancer, because science has already proven that 95% cervical cancers can be prevented by vaccination. So let us also focus on that and also educate the community about the vaginal cup, because it might have implication in our society where people are still so much concerned about virginity and other issues. So let us also try to educate about that aspect and encourage using real organic sanitary pads. Properly built cloth sanitary pad may be a solution for those who want to avoid it for the time being.
I don't think we could disagree. I don't think we could disagree with a single point you've made in that intervention. Dia, last word quickly.
I just hope we can get together and make sure we find some hard answers that we need right now.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is this, that while we are not scientists, we are the end users of this product. This impacts hundreds of thousands. No, it impacts millions of women. It impacts all of us. It impacts our children. And I think the point has also now been made about baby diapers. And I think we demand greater transparency of the manufacturers and a more urgent intervention from the government to just look at least at the basic question: are sanitary pads safe? There must be a way to actually have genuine chemical free products. After all, a cotton cloth is chemically free. However, then there are other issues like how do you conduct your work? How does a woman go to the farm? How does she collect water? How does she go to work? How does she be a soldier in the army? How does she fly a fighter jet? I mean, there's so many things. We don't want to stop our lives. These are the questions that need to be asked and the answers that need to be given. We thank Dr. Mandal and Dr. Gilada, to Alakshi, Dia, and Rita. Thank you very much. And to our audience, we hope you will help us in amplifying these critical questions. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.